Welcome friends, and welcome to my first impressions of H1Z1, which will try to answer the question, is the early access worth it for you? So firstly, if you aren't already in the loop, H1Z1 is a survival game in the same category as DayZ. It is populated by zombies, wolves and bears who are all out to eat you alongside deers and rabbits, which you are trying to eat, with other players who could do absolutely anything. Anyway, I want to split these impressions up. Because it is an early access game, the game can be patched on the day, and then the game completely changes, and the observations become obsolete. So I'm going to try and talk about more core aspects first, which are less likely to change fast, and then all of the tweaking and balancing in the second half. Just to get it out of the way, I would like to mention the monetization in the game, and the controversy with the idea of the pay-to-win airdrops. I admit it, I was in the crowd of people who were initially angry at the idea, which appeared to be clear pay-to-win. However, I think SOE are much more a victim of bad communication and bad luck, with an airdrop glitching and dropping on a Twitch streamer. Now I have seen them in game and have got more of a feel for it, I don't think they are so bad. The spawn sees a plane which rumbles far across the map and can be easily seen by a big chunk of the other 199 players on the server. They are often hotly contested and can go to anyone really. Furthermore, on medium populated servers, it isn't too hard to find a gun and some ammunition, and thinking that these will save you is probably a little flawed. I also don't think the drops were initially set by SOE to try and get players to buy items, but they are more a scaling issue with the amount of players, which I will discuss later on. But, and this is a big but, why SOE decided to have a cash shop inside the game at this point when people are paying £15 or $20 to get into the game in the first place and really test it for them, I don't know. And feel that this is just not really acceptable until it comes out of early access and into free to play. I feel if they wanted to test the airdrops, they should just gift them to players periodically, perhaps once a month, as they have already paid for something really. The only justification for the cash shop I can see is crazily people seem to be using it. Although I guess cosmetics aren't so bad. Focusing on the development of the game, as a long-time PlanetSide 2 player, I know the SOE team are fairly good at listening to customers' feedback and responding with changes to try and address them. So this is worth mentioning, and SOE have announced an open door refund policy for those that are upset about the pay-to-win controversy. Also, because they have a large development team currently working on this, the updates are coming out very fast, and this is a big advantage a AAA team have over their indie competitors. Furthermore, they have experience with the Forgelight engine already, with lots of them having used it to develop PlanetSide 2. The development speed is bound to slow down after the first few release weeks, but I think that the game won't be lacking content drops and fixes in the near future. Voice activation in this game is great, and it seems that everyone is using it. I would like to add though that I'm not sure how I feel about you being able to hear it after you die, as it does suck when you get killed by trolls and they are shouting scrub and dry humping your corpse, but perhaps this is just part of the game. I personally have had a lot of tense standoffs with people and also forged temporary friendships with those around me because of the ease of chatting. H1Z1 for me though is extremely disappointing visually. The texture quality of the terrain and objects in the world is low. It doesn't look like a new gen game and doesn't hold a candle to PlanetSide 2, which is on the same engine. I was expecting there to be an ultra texture pack for those of us that can run it, but there is nothing there at the moment. I would like to add that the rain in this game is the worst looking rain I have ever seen. It is worse than the rain in the 2003 game Star Wars Galaxies, also by SOE I might add. I think they have made it so that it massively impedes vision, but it just looks like falling string. I do understand that a lot of people don't care or can't run high graphics, so be content with this, but I would really like the option. However, the visual variety in this game is also sorely lacking, which affects everyone. You will constantly find yourself questioning whether you have been in a building before, and if you have looted that container, because so many of the buildings seem copy and pasted. Even the areas which are meant to be points of interest seem to be full of the copy and paste buildings or assets. It'd be nice for the team to add some more flair to all of the areas. I know people have bashed H1Z1 for being in generic America, but obviously for me that's a bit different because I'm from the UK. But you could still make places more unique. This sentiment also extends to the terrain, as seemingly there are lots of random generated woods that all look the same, and quite large swathes of barren waste covered in a grim looking mud texture. I feel it could be more interesting to have different types of vegetation in different parts of the map. All in all, variation could be improved on massively, as exploration is a big part of this game, but I would like to add that the geography of the map is very well thought out, with lots of zones in valleys or embedded in mountains, which adds to the sense of exploration. Also, the lighting is quite good, and the mist effects do create quite a bit of atmosphere. Something else worth mentioning is that SOE's decision to only allow official servers, which is understandable because they need to limit customization for them to make money off their cash shop, it also adds some problems, namely that SOE are dependent for getting all the servers up, and as we have already seen with all of the EU servers having 2-hour wait times, they don't currently have enough. I feel this may always be a looming problem as it is a drain on SOE's cash, and I assume they will always be trying to limit them when at all possible. This could be less of a problem as the initial popularity subsides, but could also be a problem later when the game is making less money and they want to drop servers, so it is worth thinking about. Onto the tweaks and changes I would like to see. The game currently on a full server is very hard to find loot in any buildings. Anywhere you go will have already been raided. However, on a medium server it is not so bad. I got a gun, ammo, hatchet, and after a few hours. Whilst I don't want to see SOE reduce the player cap, I think they should up the spawns of the loot in the game. And if at all possible, scale it to the population currently in the game, but I assume this would be much harder to code. At the moment the melee combat is a little hairy. It seems that with a little bit of latency it is hard to tell where an enemy is, and it becomes less of a show of skill and more of a guessing game. Also, it seems that the weapons don't actually add any damage to your melee attacks, and I would like to see quicker kills from a combat knife to the head, to be honest, rather than just giving fisticuffs. However, using the bows and arrows in the game is very tactile, and it feels great to get a headshot and see the enemy ragdoll flop to the floor. Which, I would like to add, is a big plus on the H1Z1 side. I have so much love for ragdolls, and surprisingly, I haven't actually come across them bugging out yet, which you might expect from this mechanic early on. The hunger and thirst in H1Z1 are extremely hard to manage. I feel the running speed is quite important for getting around the game as it is fairly large, but using the sprint drains your food and water so fast. You have to harvest lots of blackberry bushes just to survive. However, the loot issue on a high populated servers extenuates this because you can't find extra food like tinned goods and ready meals as they have already been eaten by greedy fellows. I do understand that the hunger can play a big part in the survival aspect of the game as there's a constant need and it forces you to go into towns to get water and supplies. However, I feel things like blackberries only giving you 2 food is a bit low. In real life, you wouldn't need to gorge yourself just to stay alive. The crafting system could do with some automation when it comes to crafting stacks of items, as it's a bit clunky at the moment, crafting one arrow after another for example. Similarly, it would be nice for some items to split into stacks, like berries, and I've seen it suggested on the Reddit saying that a handful of berries for 10 berries, which I think would be a good idea, as eating them one by one seems like an unnecessary chore. However, there are already quite a few recipes to make, and I hope they keep expanding on these to make more gathering more useful, and I think this is quite an asset actually. They've got quite a lot of items which you can craft already, and you can keep yourself busy all the time. And it's quite fun to use a discovery tool to find out new ingredients, and it seems quite user-friendly really. I haven't done much building as it is quite hard to get all the wood together with the initial bags, and I haven't found a crowbar to craft a backpack, as the wood planks are fairly bulky. I think that you could probably do this much better with a group of people and you cut trees down together and just move them all into a pile, but at the moment it's quite difficult to do that on your own. The inventory itself is a little barren at the moment and could use a bit of work to make it a bit more visually appealing and ergonomic. A lot of other survival games menus look a lot better than this. However, it is functional for the moment. I feel that the set of weapons, tools and cars are all great for the survival game, and their graphics compared to the textures of the environment are much better. Gathering the bits to get a car working is a big goal, and keeping it fueled keeps you busy. There are also several types of axes, knives, which skin and get meat, cut down trees, etc. So there's always lots of different things to do, and always options on which one you keep hold of and which one you drop. I have been a little surprised by the zombies and AI. They do traverse obstacles quite well and will follow you all the way to the top of the buildings. The zombies are slow approaching to about 5 meters and then they charge you. If you miss the initial headshot with the arrows, you can get caught out. Also, one zombie isn't too much of an issue, but a few will quickly become a very large danger. The bears, however, are a bit ridiculous and will two-shot you. I found out the hard way when a bear charged my car. I tried to run it over, and it just too hit me through the door. Yeah. The deer and rabbits are extremely hard to hunt and will jolt at the slightest sound. I would say this is okay and seems to work. However, I have seen a few deer clipped into scenery and stuck though. Also, the birds seem to be extremely derpy. I found them stuck behind ovens and they seem to just jerk through the air. They could really do with having a little look at. So in conclusion, have I had fun in H1Z1? Yes, I have, and quite a bit of frustration as well, I might add. Do I think that it was worth £15? Probably not at this point, and I personally sold some of my CSGO skins and my vanity to pay for this game. Should you get H1Z1 then? I feel that if you're an avid survival fan, H1Z1 has nice additions with crafting, ragdolls, building, and has a large player population per server, which I think is 200, so it could be worth your hard-earned wonga. However, the game in its current state is very buggy and not balanced all too well. It could be worth waiting it out, at least for now, if you aren't fans of the survival genre and already interested in DayZ and other games. I feel this could change in the coming weeks or months, depending on how quick development moves. I mean, it is perfectly playable at the moment, it's just a little frustrating. It is worth mentioning, I feel it would be much more fun with other people, as getting caught out by death squads is never fun. And also, it can get a bit lonely in the wilderness. Either way, being a part of the voice that tries to shape this game is quite interesting, and seeing it shape up isn't always a bad experience. I know people whine about PlanetSide 2 being a constant beta, but really, I've had so long in gameplay time, and I've seen the game grow, and they've actually fixed a lot of the things that they were meant to from the early game. And so, thank you all very much for watching. What do you all think of H1Z1? Have I missed anything, or do you think I'm wrong? Be sure to leave a comment. And do you want to see anything else? If you enjoyed my content, be sure to subscribe for more. Until next time everyone, Joshino.